My name is Sana, and I was born in Karachi, Pakistan. My family taught me that a woman's honor is her most precious possession. To grow up as a daughter in my home was to understand that every step, every glance, was judged against the expectations of our faith and culture. When my father's debts threatened to consume us, I took a job far from home as a nanny in Muscat, Oman. The Atom family, wealthy, kind, and busy, hired me to care for their children, Amina, 6, and Sami, 4. Their villa was grand, its white walls gleaming under the Omani sun, with lush gardens that I often watered at sunset. Please, before I continue with this story, I would like you to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification. Thank you for subscribing. Now, let's continue. Lala, their mother, loved painting. She would retreat into her studio for hours, leaving the household to me. Omar, her husband, was rarely home during the day, always busy with work. My life revolved around the children, feeding them, playing with them, reading them stories until they fell asleep. It started so innocently that I almost missed it. Omar began spending more time at home, stepping into the kitchen when I prepared meals or offering to help with minor tasks. "You have a gift with the children," he said one evening as I set plates on the table. "They adore you." I murmured a polite reply, avoiding his gaze. He was the head of the household, a man of status. Surely, his compliments were harmless. But then came the lingering moments, the way his eyes followed me as I moved about the house. I told myself it was my imagination, that I was overthinking harmless gestures. Yet, the way he spoke, soft, deliberate, stayed with me long after he left the room. One evening, after dinner, Omar found me in the garden where I often sat to catch my breath. The children were asleep, and Rala was busy with her art. The garden was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of lanterns. "You've brought a peace to this house," he said, sitting on the bench beside me. I clutched the edge of my shawl, suddenly aware of how close he was. "It's my job," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "No, Sana," he said, leaning closer. "It's more than that. You have a light in you. Do you know that?" His words struck something deep inside me, something I had buried long ago. I wanted to tell him to stop, to remind him of his wife, his family. But my voice failed me. Omar's words left me trembling. I looked down, focusing on the patterns in the tiles beneath the bench. "You shouldn't say such things," I said, my voice unsteady. "I'm only speaking the truth," he replied. "You're remarkable, Sana. I see it every day." I felt a warmth creep up my neck. There was a sincerity in his tone that unnerved me. Before I could respond, Rela's voice called from the house. Omar rose, giving me one last lingering look before walking away. That night, I lay awake in my small room, my thoughts in disarray. My prayers felt hollow, my whispered supplications unable to drown out his voice. "Ya Allah," I pleaded, "protect me from the whispers of Shaitan." But Omar's presence grew heavier in the days that followed. He would find excuses to speak with me, ask questions about my family, my life in Pakistan. His attentiveness was intoxicating, and I hated myself for feeling drawn to it. One evening, While Lala was out with friends, Omar returned home earlier than usual. I was in the living room, tidying up after the children. "Sanaa," he said, his voice low. I turned to find him standing in the doorway, his tie loosened, the top button of his shirt undone. "Yes, sir?" I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Come, sit," he said, motioning to the couch. "I have chores to finish," I replied, avoiding his gaze. "They can wait." Reluctantly, I sat on the edge of the couch, keeping a careful distance. He sat beside me, his body angled toward mine. "You work so hard," he said, his voice soft. "Do you ever take time for yourself?" "I have everything I need," I replied, clasping my hands tightly in my lap. He reached out, his fingers brushing against mine. The contact sent a jolt through me. I should have pulled away, should have reminded him of his wife, his children. But I didn't. "Sanaa," he said, his voice barely audible. "You deserve to be happy." I felt the tears welling in my eyes. I wanted to tell him to stop, to leave me alone. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I sat there, silent and trembling, as he leaned closer. Omar's lips brushed mine, soft and hesitant, as if waiting for me to pull away. I didn't. In that moment, all the barriers I'd built around myself crumbled. The shame, the guilt, they would come later. But right then, I let myself be held in his arms, let the world outside fade into nothingness. When the sound of the main door unlocking shattered the quiet, I jumped back as if burned. Rela's voice echoed in the hallway, calling out for him. Omar stood, composed as ever, and went to meet her, leaving me alone with the weight of what had just happened. I spent the night wide awake, haunted by the memory of his touch. I scrubbed my hands until they felt raw, as though I could wash away the sin. But the guilt stayed, gnawing at me, a constant reminder of my failure. The following morning, I avoided him. I focused on the children, pouring my energy into their laughter and innocence. But Omar was persistent. "Can we talk?" he asked when I was setting the table for lunch. "There's nothing to discuss," I replied without looking at him. "Sanaa, please," he said, his voice gentle but firm. I turned to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. "This has to stop," I said, my voice trembling. "I cannot betray your family, betray Allah, like this." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Do you think I don't feel the weight of this? I know it's wrong, but I can't stop thinking about you. You're in my mind, Sanaa, every moment of the day." His words left me shaken. I wanted to believe him, wanted to lose myself in the fantasy he painted. But reality loomed, stark and unforgiving. As the days passed, the tension between us became unbearable. Every stolen glance, every accidental touch, felt like a spark threatening to ignite a fire. One afternoon, Rala took the children to visit her mother, leaving us alone in the house. I told myself I would stay in my room, avoid any interaction with him. But when Omar knocked on my door, I found myself opening it, unable to resist the pull he had over me. "I'm leaving soon," he said. "There's a meeting at the office, but I wanted to see you before I go." My throat felt dry. You shouldn't be here. I know, he said, stepping inside. But I had to. The room felt smaller with him in it, the air heavy with unspoken words. He reached out, his hand brushing against my cheek. Tell me to leave, and I will. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, I leaned into his touch, letting my defenses fall. He kissed me then, deeply and with a hunger that matched my own. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer as I clung to him. The world outside ceased to exist as we lost ourselves in each other. When it was over, reality crashed down like a tidal wave. I sat on the edge of the bed, my face buried in my hands. This can't happen again, I said, my voice barely audible. He sat beside me, silent for a long moment. I know, he said finally, but I don't regret it. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him that regret was all I felt. But the truth was far more complicated. A part of me didn't regret it either, and that terrified me. The next morning, I handed Rala my resignation. She looked at me, confused. Is something wrong, Sana? Have we done something to upset you? No, madam, I said, forcing a smile. You've been nothing but kind. But I need to return home. My family needs me. It wasn't entirely a lie. My family did need me, but that wasn't why I was leaving. I had to get away, had to find a way to reclaim the person I had been before. As I packed my things, Amina and Sami clung to me, their innocent eyes filled with tears. Don't go, Sana, Amina said, her voice breaking my heart. I hugged them tightly, whispering words of comfort I didn't truly feel. I'll miss you both so much, I said, tears streaming down my face. When Omar returned home that evening, he didn't say a word. Our eyes met briefly, a silent exchange of emotions too complicated to put into words. As the taxi pulled away from the villa, I looked back one last time, the weight of my choices pressing down on me. Ya Allah, I prayed, forgive me for the path I've taken. Guide me back to you. The city lights blurred as the taxi sped through the streets, carrying me toward an uncertain future. I didn't know what awaited me, but I knew one thing. I couldn't let myself fall again. Please, like and subscribe for more stories like this.